See, I did the double check to see if Timmy hit record before.
I was like, this guy's gonna say something. I'm gonna start recording.
I love it. Well, it's funny to me because there's actually so much going on, despite the fact that sports is winding down. But the Leafs have hired a new GM. It seems the NBA Finals is set. All of these things going on. There's drama in Jays land. Nick Nurse has a new job. But I feel like we can only start with one place and one place only, right? The Succession finale was that fuego fire that we got to start there. And I got to give it up to, we sent this in the group text, right? That TikTok account that had the whole breakdown of Tom Wamsgam's name. And for me, I got to say that when I saw that, I was like, oh, I hope this isn't right. Because I hate Tom. And I still hate Tom. And the fact that Tom, quote unquote, won, what do you guys make of that? Do you like that? Were you okay with the ending?
Wait, before you get into it, I have a question for Tones.
Uh-oh.
Tones, are you allowed to message the group chat? Wow. Succession. I have takes. Is that okay? Is that an okay?
It's not okay, Sheldon.
How is that
not okay?
What?
It's not okay. It's not okay.
Hold on. How is that not okay? Please explain.
We're putting you on blast, TM, on this right now, okay?
First,
I don't want to know that it was good. I don't want to know that it was bad. I don't want to know anything. I want radio silence. And we're talking about this at work. Like, we don't think it's okay. Like, why are people live tweeting a series finale? And Shell, you didn't do this, but like some people on Twitter in our universes were live tweeting it. And it's just, what kind of selfish asshole do you got to be to do that?
First
fuck off.
Let's rewind this conversation. Please repeat said text, please.
Quote, wow, period, Succession, period. I have takes. Period.
So my question to you and to the listeners, does that text implicate something good or something bad? Like, do you know right now what I'm about to say about Succession?
Shell, it doesn't matter.
Of course it matters.
The fact that you said wow means like, oh shit, and now the wheels start churning, right? And you're going, fuck, what does that mean? Does that mean there was some weird crazy twist? Does that mean Bran appears in the finale of Succession? And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not okay. I want to know nothing. I want to go in totally blind with my own like theories and thoughts. But when you said I have takes, I'm going, uh-oh.
But how does that change? How does that change from what you already thought going into the finale, the series finale of Succession?
It doesn't, but it puts you in a different mindset. That's it. That's all it does.
Some might say a good mindset. I don't know. I would suggest a good mindset.
Because all I'm saying is, if you have the privilege of sitting down on a Sunday night and watching live television because you still have cable and all that stuff, but like some of us got to wait for streams. Some of us are working in the case of Timmy and I. We know this. Don't live tweet the series finale. Like, it's just not okay. Don't be spoiling shit. I don't want to hear any. We put our phones on do not disturb. Like, my wife was texting me, like asking me serious questions. Like, why didn't you answer me back? I'm like, Succession finale. I'm like, nothing's getting spoiled here. I was getting Twitter notifications at my own fault that I was forgetting to turn off. And thankfully nothing was spoiled, but I saw it pop up. I'm like, that's it. Do not disturb.
Some accountability here. Some accountability here. Okay.
Accountability. Yeah.
Good. Because I would suggest that I understand if you have to work. If you have to work, cool. There's nothing we can do about that. Got to pay the bills. I understand that. Other than that, there are certain shows that once it gets down to business, meaning big time series finale, you got to watch that live. If you don't watch it live and expect to be on social media or expect to be a part of group text, that's on you. That's a personal problem. If that gets spoiled, it's a personal problem. And there's certain shows, and I think we can acknowledge that Succession has hit that point to where if you're not watching live and you're not like literally having a baby at that moment or having to work or just something really, really big, that's on you. Now, I thought that I was giving the group chat the common courtesy of not spoiling anything, but just, being like, wow, that's it. And I got takes, and you still to this point do not know whether I'm going to say that was really, really good or that was really, really bad. So I would say that I did a very good job in being a friend. I think you guys should be starting this pod by saying, you know what, Shell, thank you for being a friend.
Shell, imagine. Okay, so take yourself back to the Kawhi shot. Okay, imagine we're both watching the same game, but I'm 30 seconds ahead of you. You can't see my screen, I can't see your screen, and I go, "Oh my god!" But you don't know what happens yet. But I'm not telling you what happened, but I just go, "Holy shit, that was fucking crazy." Wouldn't you go, "Fuck, okay, something's about to happen," but you don't know what that something is, but then that something happens and you finally see it, and doesn't it take a little bit of the oomph off of that? You know what I'm saying?
I'm glad you brought this up, because you see, this did happen in real world, real life scenarios, and I put my phone to the side and I watched the game. And I had the game up because at the point we had that was when they were in the testing phase of that Ignite stuff, remember? Okay. And there's a delay, and so some people were ahead, some people were behind, and you had to know, listen, I put the phone down, this is what I'm watching, you're watching it on your own timeline. But the reason why I'm saying I'm glad you brought that up, because if we remember, during that Raptors playoff run, it coincided with the end of Game of Thrones. So Sunday nights, there were back-to-back Sunday nights, I want to say, where I don't know if it was a Kawhi shot, but it might have been like one week was a Kawhi shot, and then the next Sunday was like the Kawhi versus the Bucks, where the Raps made that crazy comeback, came back and won. The bottom line is you're going up head-to-head against like the end of Game of Thrones. And that was the hardest of trying to be on Twitter, because I was doing a live show after each Raptors game. So try to be on Twitter, but not seeing Game of Thrones spoilers in the last season.
Your mute game had to be on point that night. Like, just like everything's muted. Yeah.
The other part of that, though, was I still made sure, did the live show. Live show would end around midnight, had to edit, had to post it, do all that, but still made sure that I watched Game of Thrones at 1, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, because I knew I couldn't come to work the next day and not see Game of Thrones. Because if I came to work, right, that's on me. It's going to be spoiled for me. And I saw your man's Torques yesterday. He was fired up. He was mad because we were having the same conversation at work yesterday about spoilers and when you need to watch and when you shouldn't watch and who is it on to watch. Listen, certain shows, Succession, Game of Thrones, things that, like, when you know there's going to be something that can be spoiled, you have to watch. Like Euphoria, cool, I could miss that. I could be a couple days late on Euphoria. You're not going to spoil anything for me there, right? Succession, though, when we need to find out who's going to quote unquote win, that's on you, man.
All right.
So I pose my same question.
We're still friends, though.
Well, that's all that matters at the end, right? That's all that matters in the end. Speaking of in the end, though, your man's Tom. I'm not going to say, I know you guys like Tom, but were you happy with the ending? We'll start there.
I was satisfied. I was very satisfied with it.
Satisfied? Is that happy?
Yeah. No, because I don't think there was ever going to be a happy ending. I'm happy that the show ended not horribly, because that was my big fear. That's your big fear with a show you love, right? Like Game of Thrones was amazing, and then they fucking blew it, right? Mm-hmm. And now it's always tainted forever. Now I can think back of Succession and think, wow, this was a perfectly constructed, like, 4-season arc that had an ending that made fucking sense.
Yeah.
And I'm happy about that. I'm really happy about that. And I said it last week, I think. Like, even if this episode wasn't like a quote unquote 10 out of 10 banger, which I'm sure some people are like, yeah, I'm okay with it, but like, I'm not like totally blown away. I don't care, because this whole last season was so unbelievably excellent that I think it's just, I'm satisfied. I'm just satisfied. I'm happy with how it ended.
So the thing that made this episode so good to me was the twists and turns still, right? For a show that I know I say the same thing every week, but there's no someone getting shot. There's no crazy action scene, but yet they still do such a great job of tricking you as the audience in terms of you think something's going to happen and then boom, they switch gears. I got to admit, when they were showing the night before, the kids all like, once Roman and Shiv made the agreement with Kendall, hey, yeah, we're going to back you. And then they're having like They're joking around in the water. They're joking around in the kitchen. Well, the meal for a king, is that what they're calling it? Meal for a king.
Yep.
They're playing around. They're joking around. When all that stuff was happening, I was like, okay, I see where this is going down. They're at least going to all win together, or they're all going to lose together, and that's how the show's going to end. I'm like, I'm okay with that. They finally sort of were on the same page. I got to admit, I was super tricked by that. Were you guys? Or because I've seen some other people say, seeing that moment, you knew the other shoe was going to drop and it was going to blow up somehow. Which side were you guys on?
I'm not Tim, I don't know if you want to jump in here, but is it insane of me that like this is how like scarred I am from Game of Thrones? The whole time I was thinking, oh my God, he's going to get eaten by a shark. Like straight up. I'm like, it's going to be the dumbest thing that's about to happen that I'm just going to be so mad about, and I'm just going to turn off the TV. But no, I did think that there was something coming for sure. Like I thought there was something like just in my head, and this is where it's a problem. Hey, Webby's here. We're talking Succession.
Nick Nurse.
Get out of here.
Nick
Get
Nurse.
out of here.
It's all about Wamsgans, baby.
Oh,
Yo, some might even argue that the Sixers hiring Nick Nurse is like Mattson hiring Tom Wamsgans.
he's going to be our pain sponge. Hey, he's a pretty simple manager.
Wait,
Pretty simple manager.
So does that mean that Nick Nurse sucks the biggest dick in the room? Or
It's a good question.
I mean, if you ask Dwayne Casey, I mean, Dwayne Casey might have some thoughts on that. Yeah, story for another day, or maybe for 20 minutes from now, once we're done weeding through this Succession. Just so Tones, we'll let you continue here, but we were just talking about just were you tricked? Were you tricked by the kids all making up in the kitchen? Were you tricked by that, or did that just lead you to believe shit was about to blow up?
No, yeah, it was over. Then you look down at how much time is left in the show, and you're like, that's not going to end well.
You do that? I stopped myself from doing that. There's times where I want to pick up the remote and like look and be like, no.
Succession is never a show like that unless I'm like, God, I hope there's so much more time left.
Yeah.
But I just knew, like Tony was making that. I knew that there's a lot more of this episode to come, and this ain't gonna last. As nice and funny and it was so great, and then it's. You just knew that it was going to come to a head in some way, you know?
So let me ask you then, Tones, who did you think was going to blow it up then?
I didn't know, like, obviously in hindsight, when I saw the three siblings squabbling like children in that boardroom, I was like, of course, right? Of course, that was like in that moment when they're in the water, I'm not thinking that that's coming. But I'd been saying it, like, Kendall hasn't had his moment yet. And he's either going to be, like, they kind of threw the fake on us at the church where even I said it like, wow, he's acting like a CEO. He stepped up in a big moment and said the right words. And I'm like, fuck, maybe he's growing. So I could see it ending like that. Or in classic Kendall fashion, he fucking blows it, which is definitely would be the betting favorite, right? So there was going to be a moment here where somebody screwed something up, and it was probably going to be Kendall. And even though he didn't technically screw it up, like the siblings just couldn't get along. And that just checks out so perfectly. And I thought of the first episode of this final season, the contrast there from the start of it, when the first thing we see is, Romy, let's make a company or whatever, like when they're starting the 100. And it actually genuinely seemed to be getting along as best as those three can possibly get along. And now smash cut to that as the final thing we see. And it's just like, oh my God, it's so perfect. And to me, I'm thinking about it going like, they would have been happier not doing what their dads, like not trying to fill their dad's shoes. And that's the ultimate tragedy of this, which I think is like perfect. I just think it's so well thought of that I don't know how many shows would have actually done that.
It all broke down that they, in the end, were just the three kids outside of their dad's office making noise.
Right.
You know, that's just what they weren't serious people. And somebody brought this up. I think it was, anyway, one of the many Succession podcasts I listened to brought up the point that, like, you could really, going back throughout the series, just look at the faces of the other corporate people in those settings, in those boardroom settings, whenever Kendall, Roman, or Shiv opens their mouth. Just the look on Frank's face and all these nameless board members that we see, how they're reacting to what these kids are saying shows you everything that you needed to know about how this show was going to end. None of them were going to end up on the top of the totem pole because none of them are serious people. Logan was right. He was going to sell the company to Madsen because he knew that none of these kids who had been coddled since the day they were born had the inner workings of a real leader of a company like Waystar.
They did such a good job throughout this season of sprinkling in the breadcrumbs, showing you the kids arguing, but going back to their childhood, right? Like they'd randomly sprinkle in something like, remember Shiv was getting mad at Kendall and she referenced like him telling dad
spilling the chocolate milk.
Yeah, for spilling the chocolate milk in the back of the car or whatever. Like they'd have these little moments where they'd go back to their childhood and you could tell that this is just a theme that so perfectly symbolized what you just said, Webby, their reference to being outside the dad's office arguing. And that's how the show ends. But I got to say, I was stunned. When Shiv gets up and walks out, I was like, okay, what's happening? And then when she turns on him and they're having the argument, I was getting mad because I'm like, wait a second. They haven't even explained. She doesn't even explain why she's going against him. She didn't explain it. And I was getting mad at that, watching it, thinking, okay, this is just dumb. But then after Roman made the comment of, we are bullshit,
baby.
We are all bullshit.
Great podcast title.
We're all bullshit.
It's funny because I was watching I went back and watched the first episode just to see what it was like. And in that like same boardroom, Romy is just like, he says like, this is all bullshit because like they're gonna whatever, give it all to Kendall, and Kendall thinks he's gonna be like the rightful heir. And he's like, oh, this is all, but like, he just looks at all the execs and it's like, and it's just funny because like this show is just full circle. Everything just connects. And like, to me, I felt like sad at the end. And I was like, why do I feel sad? Like
these are terrible people.
I hate all
and they just
people.
Made $7 billion. Like, it's
that's what I kept thinking is like, they're all still like, why are you pissing and moaning? To me, the person who won, I don't know if we've touched on this, but the person who really won was Roman.
Yes,
because he says, I'm locked in. This is my cage. He had been under the thumb of his father for how many years, sustaining abuse that is mentioned and is sometimes only alluded to about how this kid was pressed down and like destroyed by not just his father, but this whole power structure. And at the end of it, when he's like, fuck it, I vote no, he's at a bar having a drink, not in his cage. He's broken free of the cage. And now he's got the rest of his life to figure out what he wants to do, whether it is, continue to be a fascist asshole or whether it's to be a playboy drunk. Who cares as long as he's not in his cage anymore? So I thought that as foul of a guy as Roman is, I thought he kind of came out on top of all the other siblings and Tom. Because listen, Tom might be CEO, but the guy who's his boss wants to fuck his wife and wants him to be a pain sponge. So like, that's not much of a win if you ask me.
The guy who's in charge wants Tom to suck his dick and then with that same dick, fuck his wife. And Tom's like, yep, sure, sign me up. What? Yeah. Like Tom is
I'll sing for my supper.
Tom is the absolute worst. But to go back to what you're saying about Roman and how fitting is it? Because all these little nuggets they drop, Roman sitting at the bar drinking the martini, which is Jerry's drink. Every time we saw Jerry drink throughout
Jerry's
the show,
drink.
Jerry's
drink.
Yeah.
Great call. I was like, I thought it might have been Logan's, but then Logan's always drinking the brown liquor.
I think that's why this show is like sad because like I don't think anyone won. I think everyone.
No, you're right. You're right.
Like everyone was. What's the guy from the Cardinals? Like they are who we thought they were. Like that. They just nothing changed, and like I think that's like how we're supposed to feel because like it's a show of all these like elites, rich people. And like we should hate them because they're all rich and they do all this shit. But at the end of the day, they really don't have anything because like for Kendall, like everything was the company to him, and he got nothing. Like no one got anything, and I don't think anyone really won. And I think that's why it's sad, and it's like weird to like feel sad about all these like rich people, and just like
because it's like even Tom, right? If you think that he won because he got what he wanted, like this is exactly what Tom wanted, you still see him sort of sad because when Shiv says to him, "Do you want to actually try to do this and have a relationship?" He's like, I don't know.
I don't know.
And it's like he wanted to get the power and he was going to do anything to get the power. Like he stuck with Shiv, knowing she was cheating on him, like accepting their open relationship, all these things that he didn't really want, but he did just to get to this position he's at now. And he's there. And I don't even know if he's that happy.
No.
So that's a really crazy part. But I thought like what they did with this show in terms of taking these people that if you just met them in passing or you just had a meeting for whatever reason with these people, you would hate them all. But the genius of the show is as they dug deeper into each character, there were moments that made you feel for them, right? Each on a different level, but you felt bad for Kendall, despite the fact that he's a murderer. He killed that kid. You know, you feel bad for Shiv. And then like for me watching it, because, you know, I've been on Team Shiv, hashtag Shiv wagon, but
Shiv has a wagon.
That's the joke.
Okay,
the joke.
You got it.
But Shiv, like when that happens, right? You're thinking, what is she doing? But then you realize, oh no, they're all fucked up. Yeah, they're all so emotionally fucked up that she couldn't even just let her brother have the win and just sit back and take the money and be cool. Let her brother have the win. You still have it. Like everything's fine. But to me, the little nuggets in between and the genius as like we work in the industry. So we watch the show in a different way. So there's different things you're going to appreciate along the way. And one of the things that I loved about this show was learning how they put it together. So they would tape a scene and then they would tape an extra scene in which the camera people just got to do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. So they would do it as it was scripted. And then, you know, you could zoom in and rack focus and do all those things. And they would just do extra scenes for that person. But the Kendall scene at the very end. So after the kids all argue, right, in the boardroom, Kendall's improving. Jeremy Strong is improving when he walks goes back into the boardroom. That's not a part of the script.
Whoa.
And so the camera's just following them, and the camera follows them into the room, and then that's all improv. And so what Jesse Armstrong, right? What he started doing was feeding back lines. So now they're just riffing. And when Frank says, you don't have it, there's a take that they did where Frank says, you don't have it. You never had it. And so when they cut back to Kendall, he's like so depressed. And so Jeremy Strong said that when they were filming that, that's kind of the part that he took on for the rest of the following scenes, right? Like, like how depressing is it that I never actually had it?
It was all futile.
And here's my godfather telling me, like, in a very mean way. And again, that's not the take that they used, right? But just imagine that, like the realization that, like I am bullshit and I was always bullshit and I never had a chance at doing this. Like that's the crazy thing is that's why we feel sad for him, because like, you're seeing that in his face.
They're using all those takes and they're using film. Like they're it's not digital, it's crazy. They're using film.
HBO money, baby.
What I love about
HBO money.
What I love, I didn't know that, Shell. So thanks for sharing that. And what I love about that is like, how many shows would have used that take? But this show is smart enough to understand that, like, we're not going to use that take because we think the viewer's smart enough to figure that one out. And after, as the credits are rolling, I'm sitting there like just digesting it. I thought about Joel Embiid. I thought about the Marners and the Austin Matthews, and it's like this is sports.
Never had it.
They're just going through a rebuild, and how much have we talked on this pod since its birth of all these players and all these teams that just don't have that it factor, right? Like, there's no Jimmy Butlers in that family. There's nobody there that's just like, I got this shit. And Kendall, it never made sense for him to be on top at the end. It never made sense for Shiv. It never made sense for Roman. So yeah, by default, maybe sure it is Tom. But I want to ask you guys a question. And this is the best part of the show. And this is not an original question. So I've heard this many, many times. But I love how they ended it where it's like, okay, the story's going to continue here. We just might not be a part of it. I was thinking, what comes of everybody? What's Kendall's future? Does he kill himself? Because it probably is leaning towards that. He's going to get back into drugs. He's going to get back into all that stuff. My thinking, and the question I want to ask you guys, how do you think Tom survive? Like, what's Tom in 5 years? And I'll buy you guys some time. I think him and Buddy there, Madsen, aren't going to get along, and he's going to cut his throat at some point in the near future. Tom's going to get on this power trip for like a year, and then he's gone. And then he's back at square one, and it's him and Shiv just doing whatever. What do you guys think? I
disagree. I think Tom is a big of enough shit eater that he would take anything that Madsen puts on him. And I see Tom putting the next 18 years of his life into work. And as soon as that kid is off to college, they're split up and he has a midlife crisis and maybe leaves the company. But I think for the next 18 years, he's putting in work as CEO. Shiv's telling him what to do. He's hardly home. And then that kid turns 18 and they split up.
So, it's so funny because like we watch shows and it's just like, oh, like the character development of this person, like they went from this to this. Like I think every character in the show is just the same, flat.
Where they started. Where they started.
Like, where they started. True. And it's so funny you brought up Carl like saying like never had it. When I watched the pilot, they're like when Logan's talking to Kendall, Logan just keeps looking back at Carl and they have these looks at each other being like, this guy fucking sucks. He's like, he definitely doesn't have it. So it's funny that like it kind of came full circle with that.
Full circle, yeah.
I love how like crazy that is, and just a creative process of understanding. You can write something down. This is the script, but now in the moment, you're just gonna come up with, hey, let's improvise this, because the script was just Kendall to leave and go to the elevator. And instead he walks back in. But think about how much more magnitude that built up in the moment, him going back into the office. But to top off your point there, your question there, Tone, sorry, on what happens to Tom, Skarsgård on a podcast. Sorry, I know I'm dropping a bunch of nuggets here.
When do we get Skarsgård on our podcast? When does Skarsgård come on TV?
I'm working on it. I'm working on it, Webby. I'm working on it. Going to Spain in a couple days. Going to Spain in a couple days. Going to meet Skarsgård somewhere, gonna do lunch. Gonna try to, get him there,
Nice.
But he was on a podcast and he addressed how in the funeral episode, Madsen is there and he's in the background and he hears Greg and Shiv talk about Tom being at work, and he registers this info as in Tom is a hard worker. He's not even at the funeral of Logan Roy because he's at work. I never noticed that. I never
love that.
I'd have to go back and watch that, but that's from Skarsgård himself saying like that's how that scene was written. Like he's in the background watching that and hearing that conversation when Greg's telling Shiv, oh, Tom was trying to come, but he's at work. And so he registers that. He's like, oh, okay, like this guy's for real.
I hate to keep going back to the pilot that I just watched, but it's like Logan has a birthday party. And like everyone's there, and then Kendall shows up, and then he goes to Kendall and he's like, "You're here? Like what? Like why are you? Shouldn't you be at work?" Wow. And it's just like it's honestly like so many little things, and they all stick to like who they are, like as a
genius. And going back on that, the same thing about Tom, the baseball, right? That whole baseball thing of his last name being named after the guy that had the only triple play in World Series history. So that same episode, Timmy, you just watched it, right? The baseball scene at the very end of the episode with the kid playing baseball. What does Roman offer him? Like $1 million. $1 million if he hits a home run. And then who tags the kid out at third base?
Tom.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I read that too.
God.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Wow.
And also,
Roman, I got to rewatch this whole series.
Roman, a jackass from the beginning, ripping up the check in the kid's face. Piece of shit from the beginning.
Again, and Timmy, if I'm wrong, I haven't watched the pilot in a long time, but like Roman up into that point, you're like, this guy's the man. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like he's not, there's not, like, he's kind of fucked up, but it's not until he rips up that check in front of the kid's face that you're like, this guy's a fucking evil prick.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So I know one of your other favorite characters that I despised was Greg. What did you guys make of Greg's outcome? I was just happy Greg didn't win. And you mentioned Greg's the same. He kind of is. He ends up being the same as just being the butt of Tom's jokes. But what did you guys think of Cousin Greg here? Because he played a major role in how this all played out, right? Like, if it's not for him, ratting basically to Kendall. This goes way differently. So what did you guys make of Greg, Tones?
Shell, how erect were you watching those two guys in a bathroom like bitch slapping each other? Like I thought of you right away. As soon as like Wamsgans is like, no, come to the bathroom, come here. I'm like, oh, Shell's on the edge. He just did the meme where he like leans forward in the chair. Like, I know you were like, yes, this is what I wanted.
For a split second, I thought they were actually gonna fight, and I was gonna get so happy. Like, actually gonna because there are a couple like not hard shots, but not fake shots or play shots either. You know what I mean? Like, it was on that line where it just needs one person to kind of hit you a little too hard before you come back. I was just hoping that was going to happen, because that would have been the best if they actually like got in a fight.
That was like low key. My favorite scene was that scene. When he came in and then they started slapping. Apparently they were like legit slapping each other. Yeah. But then my favorite part is when Tom leaves the bathroom, and then as he's leaving, Greg is like, he pulls up all the stickers and is still like putting stuff. It's like he's nonstop trying to get whatever he can. Like, that's his MO. That's Greg's MO.
And just so I stop feeling dumb here. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
just so I stop feeling dumb here. Nobody understood the sticker thing, right? Like, none of us understood the sticker.
Oh, no. Yeah. Okay, I've got a system. I've got a system.
What the fuck is going on right now?
I love
Anyway,
Connor,
sorry, Webby. Go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right, Timmy. It's like, for always looking to get something for him, and it includes coming with your legs or your tail tucked so far between your legs to come back to Tom and be like, so, like, are we good? It's just like, you've got no dignity at all. No, you just want to get ahead for yourself. And it's like, hey there, buddy. Yeah, I love the Tom and Greg friendship. You know, we all have those friendships out there. But it's like, that was kind of a brutal ending for Greg. Especially last week, we were talking about him possibly becoming a CEO. Now, you're just a bootlicker of a bootlicker, you know, like you're secondhand licking boots. It's brutal. But that's Greg, you know, like that's his character from the beginning, you know?
So overall, everyone happy with the Succession finale. Now that it is over, where does it go in sort of the hierarchy of the HBO, just TV classics? And I don't even want to say HBO, because I think Mad Men's up there too.
Yeah, Mad Men last episode. No, last season wasn't as good as the Sopranos or the what am I trying to say? The Succession last season, but the last episode of Mad Men was really good. And in terms of last episodes, I put it up there just because the show is so good, like those other shows, and it's so reminiscent of me with The Wire's final episode. About that whole full circle journey that we've just taken, and to see, you know, okay, now this character is here, this character is here, but it's really all just a big circle. Yeah. And so I really like that about the Wire season or series finale. So that's why I like the Succession one so much. So I put it in the top 5, you know, it's a top 5 show all time for me, Succession. So I think that the ending kind of justifies the ranking in my brain for the whole
That's
show.
funny. I was having an argument with Felon. We were joking around after the Succession finale, and he messaged me, so Tom is Slim Charles. And he said, I was going to say Marlo. And I was like, okay, well played, right? Because the way Tom was getting congratulated, remember the scene at the, like, when Marlo's trying to get in with the business guys and he's like shaking hands, but it's kind of awkward. And I thought, no, I think Roman is actually Marlo, as in he tried to go legit, but couldn't cut it. Yeah. And then had to just go back to being himself.
Back to the streets.
Back to the streets, right? They both had to go back to the streets. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that anything can touch The Wire, because I still think just the levels, The Wire, it's almost like Succession would be, there's a world in which Succession could be like season 6 of The Wire. Do you know what I mean? Like if they went into the world of corporate Baltimore and showed you, you know, like that side of how ATN was like the local news channel in Baltimore. Like there's a world in which I'm saying, you know, it was like a little glimpse into some subsection of society, whereas The Wire on the whole hit so many different points and they hit a home run with every different part. So The Wire to me is still king. I will say Succession it jumped, because this last season I thought they did such an amazing job, and to kill off your main character in episode 3 and still be able to produce bangers the rest of the season. That's an incredible lift that, again, only really The Wire losing McNulty for like a whole season and a bit, and then bringing them back. Like, there's only certain shows that are able to do that, and you're only able to do that with great storytelling and great characters. So yeah, nothing will touch The Wire to me. I'm gonna be like Timmy. I think I'm gonna join you on rewatching The Sopranos. I'm gonna jump in and rewatch Sopranos.
I just did it like maybe 2 years ago, and honestly, it's the GOAT. The Sopranos is the greatest piece of American television that's ever been made.
So Succession is like, I'd say it's like probably top 5. Like, it's like very like well put together. It's just, to me, it's a hard watch. It's like, I don't feel good watching it. Like, I feel like I hate all these people, but it's like such a well done show. Like, I don't know if I would rewatch it. I probably will, but with Sopranos, so I've never watched it, and I've watched like the first 3 episodes. Man, I like everybody, and it's like such an entertaining show, and there's always stuff happening. So I can already tell, like, I'm gonna love The Sopranos, even though I'm only 3 episodes in. But it's a different experience than Succession, because Succession, I came in and it was like despised everybody, whereas
it's tough to get into.
So far, I love like every character so far.
Like, I would understand someone starting to watch Succession and they're like, I don't really get this.
Yeah.
Because you got to really give it a chance to dive into the world and kind of understand that you are going to hate these motherfuckers. But give it time to understand the characters and understand the world that they're living in, right? Sorry, Tones. I know I interrupted you, my dude.
No. I listen, I'm going to just put this out there right now, okay? Haven't finished The Wire. Okay. Haven't finished The Sopranos. Okay. Liked The Wire. Liked The Sopranos. This show hooked me better than any show in the history of television for me. So honestly, for me, it's not even top 5, it's number 1. And here's why. I love villains. I find villains way more captivating and interesting. Timmy, your point is a perfect one. I watch The Sopranos. I'm a good paisan, you know. I'm watching these guys. I'm like, okay, I've never had baked ziti in my life, by the way. Don't even know what it is.
Gabagool.
Like, sure. And I'm going, okay, I relate, I get it, you know, there's some paisan jokes in here that I, can chuckle at, whatever, but I almost don't like, I find it boring if I like the characters and I'm rooting for the characters, and like, all these guys like Paulie, and like, I'm like, okay, I like all these guys, but I'm like, cool, I've seen this before. I've seen Goodfellas, I've seen like, The Godfather, I've seen all this stuff. I've never seen a show like this where like everybody just fucking sucks. And I kind of like it because the sucking is interesting, right? The evilness to me is interesting. I think about Avengers. Like, I'm like, give me 3 movies on Thanos. Get out of here with Cap. I get it. He's good. He's nice. Awesome. Cool. Like, you know what I mean? So for me, it's number 1, man. For me, it's the best show I've ever seen. I think there was a lot of complex characters and a lot of complex writing that, honestly, like, I was sitting there thinking about it, and like, we're all storytellers in this room to some capacity, and I was like, man, I wouldn't know what to do with this show. I would have no idea. And like, they really nailed it, man. Like, they really nailed it. And I got to tip my cap. I just really appreciate it. I'm going to rewatch this show like right now from the start.
Well,
I'm going to do it.
The one thing I'll say to that, Tones, is the acting in Succession is so much levels above The Wire and the Sopranos. And part of that is because, like, with both of those shows, though, they went in and tried to just get real people. Like, Snoop, for example, is someone they just found in a club and was like, hey, you should be on the show. Let me introduce you to the writers and the creators of the show. And Snoop is one of the best characters there is in The Wire, but not the greatest of actors, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But the acting in this show is just incredible. I
really liked what Timmy said, even about The Sopranos, and what you said, Tones, as well. It's like, especially at the beginning of that show, you love everybody. Like, they welcome you into their world. These guys are funny, they're engaging, and you really start rooting for them. And that is what I thought The Sopranos did so well, was to present these paisans as great guys, and then over the course of 6 seasons, show them how they're awful human beings without any remorse. They're killers. They're terrible family men. They're terrible fathers. They're terrible people. And that's the journey you take. And then at the end of this show, you're like, who did I just root for? Where with Succession, they presented them all as awful people. And you spent the next 4 seasons trying to convince yourself and actually convincing yourself that they're good in so much that you get to the end of the show and you're like, I feel sad for these guys. But they've always been awful people. And so I thought The Sopranos and Succession kind of accomplished that in different ways, but both so well. And so like, I'm kind of with you too, Tones. Like, I love bad guys. So I always kind of root for these villains. They always seem to have the most personality. And just the 2 different presentations of that in these 2 shows is magnificent. Now, I got to go.
Yeah.
I got to bounce.
No problem.
So y'all,
all good.
Good one. Nuggets in 6 and Nick Nurse. And I don't know what else.
Just Nick Nurse.
Yeah, just Nick. What?
Jay Suck and like Anthony Bass, like get him out of here. What an idiot!
What a
loser. See, Tommy Lahren is dating JP Arancibia. I don't think there's been a more bitch ass athlete than JP Arancibia. You remember when he complained that Sportsnet was giving him bad coverage, and he like complained to the team president that he wanted better press coverage? That's who JP Arancibia is. Jeez. I'm out. Later.
Bye.
So I want to say, much like Webby's star entrance and exit there, one thing that captivated me about Succession, and like when you rank it to these other shows, it is character driven. And so Logan was such a powerful character that you see the damage that even in his death, he still left over his kids. Yeah. And one scene that we didn't talk about was the scene where, like, when they're doing the stickers, but then they see the video of the dinner, and the kids, you can watch their faces and see how emotional they are watching this side of their father that you could tell they rarely got to see, despite the fact that that was their father later on in life. And they've chosen to not really have those moments with their father. You could see them kind of like upset, sad. Maybe there's regret that they never took the time, or they were beaten down so much in so many other ways that they never got to see that side of their dad. And then you see that with Connor, whereas you understand why Connor was always on his dad's side, because Connor did have that relationship. Mind you, he had a lot more free time on his hands to build that relationship with his dad. But like him just having that fun and singing I'm a Little Teapot, the impression of his dad, and like having such fun, it was such... They just did such a good job of right to the very end, giving you insight into why these kids are as fucked up as they are, and that their dad is always going to make them be fucked up, even after he's gone, even after he's dead, and he's no longer there to torment them. These memories will still always pop up and will last in their lives. That part, just incredible storytelling and writing.
It's incredible.
I think anytime they like showed any like sense of humanity, it was kind of like their downfall. It was like, oh, like there's like, oh, it's like a glimmer of hope. Here's like them actually feeling stuff. Like even the Meal for a King, it was like, oh, these are like actual people. Like, wow, like they have some redeeming qualities. And then it was really like, nope.
Well, the crazy
it feels like they did it in every. Oh, sorry, Tim. Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I feel like it's all these great scenes have been making the rounds on social media, and you just get reminded. Like I feel like they've done those human moments like every like 5 or 6 episodes. Like remember the boat scene when they're like making the funny voice, talk about our feelings. Like I just love that. I just thought that was always so funny. Like they always had these little moments, especially like even individually, right? Like, you know, how many times did Shiv and Kendall have a couple of those little, well, yeah, you know, like I love you, bro. Like, you know, I got you, man. Like, and it's like 5 minutes later, she's like stabbing him in the back. Like, it's just crazy. Like,
it's like, to me, the biggest part was it showed us that there's a world in which if they ever got their shit together, they actually could have run the company together.
Yeah.
Because to me, when you look at like pressure moments or pressure filled moments, right? To me, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the way that I read it, if something big was happening, Roman would crumble under the pressure of the moment, right? Kendall, I think, would step up in the moment, but Shiv would have all the plans. Kendall's plans always sucked, but if you caught Kendall in the moment, he could step up and on the fly, like just sell water to a whale, right? Shiv would have all the plans in the world, but her plans would always fail. So it's almost like if they worked together, they all sort of are able to handle a different side of whatever topic, whatever it is, and make it work. But their dad just screwed them up and pinned them against each other. And,
but yeah, they were all pieces of Logan, right? So yeah, they all came together. Then
yes. You said
so,
that way better than I could have. Thank you.
One last question before we all dip. Like, who you guys gonna miss the most? Like, which character are you gonna miss the most? Like, who you're gonna miss? Like, not seeing.
I'm Shiv. What do you mean? Like, I've already discussed this already. Like, what? Remember Shiv never did it for me.
Shiv never did it for me. She's too annoying. Like that first scene of the last episode, I was just like I was with, like, you could see it on Matt's, like he was just getting totally turned off by her as like professionally and whatever. And I was just like, yeah, like you're just annoying. Like same with Kendall, of course. He kicks his feet up and I'm like, buddy, fuck, man, stop. I'm gonna miss Tom the most. I love Tom. I think he was hilarious. Like the words that guy uses. If you need like Google Translate sometimes, like put down the fucking thesaurus for a second and like just speak a normal sentence. Like rummaging to fruition is just a perfect, like I'll take that line with me to the grave for the rest of my life. Like that is so good, man. And like I'm gonna rewatch the whole series and I might just start writing down Tom Wamsgan's lines. Like I'm gonna miss him the most. Timmy, what about you?
Honestly, nobody. I don't like.
No.
Yeah, like if I had to pick somebody, maybe Connor, because he was like the most like maybe human person. Like they weren't really like human beings.
You're gonna miss Willa.
Yeah, that power couple for sure.
Yeah.
So.
The thing though with Shiv that made it so interesting was the dynamic of if Shiv, like, you feel a certain way for Shiv because you're rooting for her because she's a sister and you feel like she gets dumped on by the rest of the family, right? Like she has it harder because she's the sister and the brothers like shit on her at every chance they get. So you're rooting for her. But then you realize, as Timmy said, she's just like the rest of them. She's just as fucked up as the rest of them. She's just as shitty as the rest of them. And then that's when it becomes, oh yeah, you guys are all
can
fucked.
Barely hold hands with her husband. So
fuck Tom, man. Tom's the worst. Tom is the worst. And in closing, I'll say this because I think this is the overall commentary and why I was okay with the ending at the end. Because at first I was like, I don't really like this, but it made sense because Jesse Armstrong's whole thing was giving us a peek inside this world of corporate America and his distaste of corporate America. And so it's perfect that he's showing you Tom, this shitty character, and that those are the guys that rise up in corporate America.
Yeah.
And I'll just say that before I get myself in any more trouble.